It's close to midnight in South London. Charity workers, Eamon and Monica, scour the back streets and alleys for what many see as a human cost of Britain's membership of the European Union. Migrants sleeping rough.
We found a dead body here of a Polish national who'd been drinking alcoholic hand gel from the hospital. Mix it with some blackcurrant, and drink it.
Just along the street, they find a man in danger of a similar fate.
You know him quite well, I don't know.
Yeah, I know him.
Sebastian is a Polish migrant, struggling with drink. He's been living on London streets for 4 years.
A to jest normalne, tak? Czy teraz jest gorzej?
Gorzej.
Yeah, it's worse, definitely worse, yeah.
Ja mam takie same krwi. Ja wiem, że...
He's got the blood infection and he's going to die, he said.
Sebastian, will you sit against the wall and I can do some checks?
No, ale jak ty pijesz cały czas, no to co chcesz, żeby się zmieniło?
On any one night, Eamon and Monica work with about 80 rough sleepers in the Southwark area alone. A growing number are from Eastern Europe.
And what proportion of the people here on the street that you help are Eastern or Central Europeans?
I would say about 40% in Southwark.
Parks, alcoves and playgrounds are favourites for the rough sleepers. But as the nights turn colder, so they start seeking more substantial cover.
So where are you from?
Romania.
Romania.
Jonathan's been sleeping on the streets for 3 months.
Somebody he stole my bag. He stole my document.
No.
Yeah, from 2009. Sometime I work, sometime no. There's no document.
From the street, it's hard to get started.
And if you want to open a bank account, you have to give them the proof of address.
Yes.
So if you are homeless, you don't have an address, you can't.
And then you can't get a job.
I feel really sorry for them because in my past life I got the same experience as they have.
You were on the street?
Yeah, I was on the street and I was addicted, and now I'm sober over 11 years. So I know how hard it is.
Jacek nie miał dużo szczęścia.
To try to discourage unskilled Eastern Europeans, the Home Office issued this startling video.
Aż w końcu, pewnej nocy, kiedy spał,
There's no sign that it's stopping the flow. On the streets, they don't get to watch much TV. Dawn over central London. A different part of the city, the same problem. It's 7 a.m. in London's exclusive Park Lane. Alcoves outside expensive car showrooms now double as shelters for more rough sleepers. It's time for them to go before they all get moved on.
Police problem, go, 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 police, go.
But they're not going far. They'll all be back here to sleep that night.
More than 1 million Eastern Europeans have arrived in the past few years, and from January 1st next year there's going to be many more when Romania and Hungary are allowed to have free access to the labour market here in Britain.
Migration, it's really embedded in our history.
Nik Ward is the head of Westminster Council's Rough Sleepers Department.
What's this from? Is this from in there or from...
His job is to try and contain the number of people sleeping on the streets.
All these guys are here to beg. They're entrepreneurial in their work. They've come here, it's almost like cottage industry. They're coming here just to make a bit of money on the side. So here we're going to go down and look at these guys here, see what they're up to. Really, we're going to tell them to move on.
What's the biggest problem you're facing with the rough sleepers from a council point of view?
From a practical point of view, it's cleaning up after them. The defecation, on a daily basis, just to do with the deterioration standards.
The Romanians are already on the move.
Morning.
Nik's first job is to identify who's actually here.
Can I get your bulletins, please?
The bulletin is their Romanian ID.
Why? for our records. I know you, don't I? From before. That's me.
Westminster.
Yes. Have you got a national insurance number?
Hai un numero di national insurance. National insurance, assicurare.
So you're from Stefanesti, yeah? In the Botswana region. Okay. Why did you come here? Why here? Why Marble Arch?
Nik realises he's from the same Romanian town that he's sent many back to already.
I know 20 people I've sent back to Stefanesti.
This couple tell me they're here because they simply can't earn enough money in Romania. They've already spent several months in France.
Oamenii sunt mai miloși în Italia, în Franța, oriunde am fost, sunt mai miloși.
Îi dă cazare, îi dă... Îți necăjiți, mă, deci când își găsești de muncă, mă înțelegi? Aici, mă, aici te dă afară, ia poliția.
Aici sunt prea răi.
Sunt rasiști tăți.
Sunt rasiști, nu poți să-i spui cum poate fi lumea.
Nu înțeleg.
Noi românii suntem jos.
But Nik believes this group is not here by chance.
You know, they're essentially begging props, playing on your heartstrings kind of thing. They're structurally positioning themselves to be completely dependent upon the people that are like walking past them in the streets for handouts, and yet so they're then going with any money they get, they're then putting it back and sending it back to Romania. They come from a tiny village which is right on the borders of Moldova, right on the edge of Romania, and Romania is right on the edge of Europe. So they're really a new country to Europe, and it's kind of new poverty to old wealth, coming to Mayfair, coming to Park Lane. And that's, you know, it makes sense. I can see why you'd come here to live off the fat of the land, why you'd come here to try to take those opportunities that seem to present themselves.
Working with immigration, the council has removed scores of Romanian street sleepers already. But EU open borders mean it's not easy.
France has this problem many years ago and they didn't really deal with it. They kind of ignored it, they pushed it to the edges, and now they've got hundreds of thousands of Roma living there who've got citizenship and the right to be there, and there's not much they can do about it.
Some say it's a revolving door of unskilled migrants that Britain is unable to stop. Nik takes me deeper into the exclusive streets of Mayfair.
These properties are some of the most prestigious and sought-after properties in the Western world, and we're regularly waking people up in the doorways because they don't make a distinction. You know, you or I might look at that and think, doormat, door, residential property, probably best not to sleep there. They don't seem to make that distinction. They're looking at that and saying, okay, that's a comfortable location, I'll lie down there and get my head down. And that's not, their take on the world doesn't chime with ours.
He's in a hurry. It's past 7 and the rough sleepers are already on the move.
So we're just heading up to Bond Street. You can see we're in like the heart of commercial London, really, in terms of Oxford Street, Selfridges, John Lewis, Topshop, Pennies, all these kind of big operators. So someone who's just kind of pooing in the streets outside their shops really compromises their ability to have that marketing strand.
This strip of exclusive boutiques has become a haunt for the new wave of Romanian rough sleepers.
Yeah, these doorways here, the recesses, there's recess there, recess there. A lot of the recessed doorways will have people sleeping in them. So this is a good example of a location where somebody would rough sleep.
A cafe owner comes out and asks Nik if he's from the council.
They're usually between 12 and 20.
So we've
and down there, you know,
Globe
they
Yard,
use it like a lavatory.
I know.
It's a nightmare, and the smell for the people who walk down there, people who have offices down there. The problem is that the police don't have the powers.
Well, you say that. Actually, they do. I mean,
Nik wants a closer look at the alley used as a toilet.
Really stinks.
Yeah, you can smell it from here.
And like you've witnessed, this is a really deeply prestigious street. It's this area that generates a massive amount of revenue for the economy. It's one of the building blocks, really. It might be great now, but it's not going to stay great. It's not going to continue getting the investment. It needs to be this competitive world.
West of London, Slough is also a favoured destination for Eastern Europeans.
There are certain clues that you can tell that that an outbuilding is present within, an urban environment like this. One of the ones that we have here is if you see the hole on the side.
Former homicide squad officer Ray Haslam is now in charge of Slough Council's Beds in Sheds unit, looking for unsafe, unregulated housing that's been thrown together to house new migrants.
It's an extraction point, it's a flue for a heating boiler. If you look here, these are some of the more poorly constructed properties here.
Ray estimates in Slough alone there are now up to 9,000 illegal sheds being used to house migrants. So he's adopted a groundbreaking strategy: aerial thermal imaging.
If we've got 6,000 to 9,000 properties, to knock on the doors and do investigations would be quite costly. So we then looked at thermal imaging. Now, if we look at this particular image here, it gives the indication that it is semi-detached properties that share driveways, and the purple areas here are identified as outbuildings.
These high-resolution thermal images identify which outbuildings are being occupied. Now several councils want to thermally map their own illegal outbuildings. For many East Europeans, England's lush farmlands in places like East Anglia offer good chances of work. Its main towns have received thousands of migrants, mainly from Eastern Europe, but it's causing a backlash.
We're not against the immigrant community at all. We're against a system that allows for so many to come into the country completely unfettered and completely out of control. And we just cannot continue in this vein.
Bob McAuley is a founding member of what's called the Boston Protest Group, an anti-immigration, anti-EU lobby. Bob recently won seats as a district and city councillor on the strength of his anti-immigration stance.
The majority of people in this country don't actually want to be part of this gang. We're sick to death of being ruled by Europe, told what to do, legislation coming in, regulations coming in the back door. The country is being taken over by an EU federal state, and we were never asked if we wanted any of that.
Bob wants to show me how Boston has been changed by the recent influx of Eastern Europeans.
And you've got Romanian, Polish, Latvian, Lithuanian, Portuguese restaurant.
A strip of Eastern European shops.
It's like they're taking over. When you walk down the street and see all those different nationality shops, it just reminds you that there must be so many foreign nationals living in this town to substantiate and keep the shops going.
I get the opposite perspective about the same street from Latvian migrant Zie Babaks.
Well, it was empty, and most of the empty houses and empty places was before that, and now it's all reopened, and I think it's useful.
But he says many migrants are forced into overcrowded accommodation or even onto the streets by the way in which they are underemployed.
Yes.
Right, so one job, 3 people.
Yes.
And so therefore they keep them under the level that means they have to pay national insurance, taxes and everything else.
That's right.
And is that quite common?
I know the hundreds and hundreds of cases of that.
But that means then that these people aren't earning really enough money to survive here.
That's why they're living in one house, more than 10 people.
For Bob McAuley, the cost of Britain's open border with the EU is most stark here at the local war memorial. It reinforces what is to many an emotional debate, where it's hard to disentangle facts from a British sense of itself.
When you actually come to something like this in a service and you think of all the hundreds of thousands of men and women that gave their lives and died to keep this country free and to keep it a sovereign nation, and the sacrifices that were made, the pathetic weak governments, consecutive governments, I mean, not just Labour but this Conservative government as well, have just allowed the whole country to be taken over by Europe, what did they all die for?
Bob is now one of the growing number of councillors in the United Kingdom Independence Party, or UKIP, which is growing in support across Britain on its anti-immigration policy. Long seen as a slightly comical fringe party, UKIP is now starting to rattle the traditional political establishment.
It's like being on a Big Dipper ride, isn't it? Because just at the moment you think it's all going swimmingly, suddenly you crash down to the bottom again.
Its leader, Nigel Farage, used the conference to warn of an Eastern European crime wave and more economic woes caused by open borders with the EU. It's striking a chord with a growing number of British voters feeling swamped by Eastern Europeans.
We've always been open-minded, but immigration should be people that we choose to come here, namely people that speak our language, who want to become part of our society, have got skills to offer, pay taxes, obey the law, and don't have life-threatening diseases. In fact, what I would say is the immigration policy UKIP wants is virtually identical to the one that Australia's got, and the idea that we should open the door unconditionally to as many as want to come from Eastern Europe, regardless whether they're good people or people with nothing to offer, is madness.
Many European migrants get jobs, build businesses, pay their taxes and blend in. The problem is that the homeless newcomers are a very visible price for Britain's membership of the EU. It's divided the nation, and the full political impacts are yet to be felt.